Season 19 is really shaping up to be an incredible season for all of our Stasis subclasses. I recently did a Hunter build where we went over Mask of Bakris, and that build did really well and I really enjoyed it, so I wanted to do something for the Warlocks as well, and I haven't had a chance to use Ager Scepter in a really long time, and man, putting it together this season, it's incredibly strong. Some of the seasonal mods really take this to the next level, and it's so much fun and a lot stronger than I thought. I've been using this in the battlegrounds, in the dungeon, and it's incredibly strong and so much fun to use. It really plays into that Stasis fantasy. There will be a Dim loadout link down in the comments as soon as Dim is back up and working, so keep an eye out for that. I will leave it in the pinned comment as soon as it is available. We're going to break it all down. This is one of my favorite builds that I've used in a long time, so if you guys enjoyed the video, do me a favor, leave a like down below, smash that subscribe button, but let's dive right into it and take a look at the build. Diving right into the build, let's take a look at the exotic weapon that makes this all happen. We're going to be using the Ager's Scepter. This is a Stasis kinetic trace rifle, and it's absolutely insane. It has the intrinsic perk Rigo's Refrain. Stasis Final Blows transfer ammo to this weapon's magazine from reserves. It also has the intrinsic trait Ager's Call, where final blows with this weapon generate a slowing burst around the defeated target. So every time we defeat a target, it's going to slow everything that's nearby, and as we're killing them, we're going to be reloading the weapon at the same time. The catalyst is incredibly strong as well. This is what makes the weapon really unique. When our super is full, we can hold our reload button to activate the catalyst. This empowers the beam to deal bonus damage and adds the ability to slow and freeze targets until the magazine runs out or our super energy runs out, whichever is first. For our armor exotic, we're going to be pairing this with the Osmiomancy gloves. Now, I know a lot of people are going to use the Mantle of Battle Harmony, but I'm telling you, with the mods we're using, we don't even need it. The Osmiomancy gloves grant us a second Cold Snap grenade that recharges quicker on direct impact. The Seekers spawned from Cold Snaps also travel further. And it's no joke, if we're constantly freezing enemies and hitting them with our Cold Snap grenades, we basically have permanent uptime on our Cold Snaps, and we have 2 of them, which will feed into Ager's Scepter and really form the loop of the build. With those 2 exotics in mind, let's take a look at the subclass itself. We of course have the Winter's Wrath super. We are going to use Healing Rift. I prefer this, it adds some nice survivability to the build. And we will use the Cold Snap grenade, of course, to pair with Osmiomancy gloves. For our aspects, this is where I change things up a little bit. A lot of people like to use the Bleak Watcher turret, and you absolutely can, but I really prefer the Ice Flare bolts. This makes it so shattering a frozen target spawns additional Seekers that track and freeze more targets. Basically gives us the most bang for our buck out of our Cold Snap grenades. We want to be freezing as many targets as possible to synergize with the subclass, as well as Ager's Scepter. We will also take Glacial Harvest, which makes it so freezing targets create stasis shards around the frozen target. The higher tier enemy, the more shards get created. Moving on to our fragments, the first fragment we will take is Whisper of Rhyme. This makes it so collecting a stasis shard grants us a small amount of overshield. This gives a nice added layer of survivability to the build. We'll constantly be picking up those shards, so we always have that overshield. Next, we'll take Whisper of Conduction, which makes it so those shards automatically track towards us, makes it so we don't even have to think about it, and gives us some nice bonus stats. Third, we'll take Whisper of Fissures. This increases the damage and the size of the burst of stasis whenever we destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. This just adds some nice damage and ad control, really makes the build very explosive. And finally, in our 4th slot, we do have a couple of options. Whisper of Bonds makes it so defeating frozen targets grants us super energy. This is really nice when we activate that Will Given form on Ager's Scepter. We can really maintain the Will Given form when we have Whisper of Bonds going. This isn't necessary for the build, and if you're having trouble with maintaining your grenades, you could also swap this out for Whisper of Torment, which gives us grenade energy every time we take damage from targets. So it's really up to you for this 4th slot. Now moving on to our mods, this is where we really turn the build into a complete steamroller. The most important mod you're going to need is Elemental Shards. This makes it so those stasis shards that we create count as stasis elemental wells. We can do a lot with that synergy, and it really helps us round out the build. The next mod we will take is Elemental Charge. That's going to make it so anytime we pick up those stasis shards, we become charged with light. This will grant us 2 stacks of Charge with Light because it's a matching element to our subclass. With those stacks of Charge with Light, we will then take Firepower. This makes it so whenever we are charged with light and we throw our grenade, it will consume 1 stack of Charge with Light and give us a nice chunk of grenade energy back. Between the Osmiomancy glove passive and this mod, we basically have permanent uptime on our stasis grenades. And rounding things out, we will also take Font of Might. This makes it so anytime we pick up a well, we get a 25% increase to our stasis weapon damage. This stacks on top of Will Given Form and turns Ager's Scepter into an absolute laser beam that melts everything. And finally, for the 5th mod, this mod's sort of an audible. I am using Font of Wisdom. This makes it so anytime we pick up an elemental well, it's going to bump our intellect all the way up to 100 intellect. It's going to give us a little bit more passive super regen, combined with things like Whisper of Bonds. This makes it so we can really maintain that Will Given Form while we're using Ager's Scepter. It's all very passive, just pick up those stasis shards, throw your grenades, and everything else will do the work for you. Now, while we're on the subject of mods, I do want to talk about some seasonal mods because everything here is very stasis focused this season. We do have the mod Lord Kelvin's Basilisk. This makes it so our stasis grenades cause disruption. We can use this against overload champions, makes it very easy to deal with those, or we can take low entropy superconductor, which makes it so our stasis melee will stun unstoppable champions. So whichever one you need to deal with, you can slot this into your class item. You can use both of them at the same time if you want, but in the 5th column, we also want to take Monochromatic Maestro. This makes it so dealing damage with elemental abilities grants us increased damage to weapons of the same element, and vice versa. Dealing damage with elemental weapons grants increased damage to our abilities. So it's sort of a loop that goes back and forth. Using abilities buffs weapons, using weapons buffs our abilities. It's almost like having a miniature version of the Mantle of Battle Harmony, but this increases our weapon damage all the time because we're constantly tossing out those grenades. I do highly recommend taking Trace Rifle Ammo Finder and Trace Rifle Scavenger on your legs. Since we will be burning through ammo on Ager's Scepter pretty quickly, this will allow us to at least have a little more ammo economy while we're using that weapon. You can also use something like Momentum Transfer on your arms. This makes it so whenever we deal damage with a grenade, it reduces our melee cooldown. Since we're really speccing into grenades here and not so much our melee, this helps us get that melee back a little bit quicker. As far as our stats go, you of course want to go for 100 resilience. This gives us a 40% damage decrease against all damage coming in. We can also use that seasonal artifact mod for our chest, which will reduce damage further. I do recommend going for as high as possible on your discipline. You can really get away with like 70 discipline, and with Osmiomancy you can still have constant uptime on your grenades, but the higher the better. Looking at our other weapons, I am just using the Ikelos SMG. This roll with Feeding Frenzy and Volt Shot is absolutely incredible. Whenever we do run out of ammo on Ager's Scepter, it's nice to have a solid primary that we never have to worry about ammo for, and this thing's an absolute beast, but you can really switch this up. If you need to cover other champions, this slot is pretty free. Use whatever you want here. For our heavy weapon, I do recommend using a stasis heavy weapon. We do have 2 incredible stasis linears now. Reed's Regret, which is no longer in the game. Hopefully you have a good roll on it. But we also have the Fire and Forget, which is a 3-burst stasis linear. That's an incredible option this season, and it's craftable, so you definitely want to get your hands on it. With all the stasis mods we have this season, we have a lot of potential for some of these stasis builds. I did recently do a Mask of Bakris build for all my hunters out there, so definitely go check out that video if you're interested. And I had to move over to Ager's Scepter, and it works so well on Warlock with the Osmiomancy gloves. It's such a fun build, and you can see by some of the gameplay, it's really, really powerful. You can absolutely shred those Seraph battlegrounds. They're very, very fun. But it also deals with champions. You can freeze them and stun lock them and really delete just about any champion in the game. It's an incredibly fun build. There will be a dim link down in the description as soon as dim is back up. It's currently down right now, so forgive me for not having the link right away, but I will add it to the pinned comment, so check for that down below. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor, leave a like down below, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.